You got laid off. How do you end up here?
So I went back home and I told my wife, I'm not updating my resume. I'm not updating a cover letter. I'm going to start my own business. So I had a refurbished IBM computer. My expenses were low. My wife was very understanding. My 2 kids didn't know what was going on.
Right.
But that was learning. You know, they were learning. And I think that was something valuable when I would share with my children what was going on. Because, you know, it's like they are not listening, but they are listening.
They are. They're paying attention.
They're paying attention, yeah. So I did that. And I had a Yahoo account. And next day I was in conversations with a company in England. And I say, look, I know that you are looking for online work and I can deliver results for you. So I didn't get them as a client, but that was the starting point. Mm-hmm. And I was a bit naive, but I had the knowledge. Mm-hmm. I knew how to do Google Ads.
You knew your worth.
Yeah.
You knew your value.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mission Control. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
This is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands. And we've got a very special edition, a small business development edition, as we have our guest, Nelson Merchan from the Connecticut Small Business Development Center.
Whoa. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
This is great.
Am I saying it right?
Yep.
Because I want to say it in the Spanish way.
Nelson Merchan.
Merchan. Yeah. Merchan. And that's a Colombian heritage.
Colombian. I was born in Bogota, Colombia.
Excellent. So we can't wait to dive into that. But first, I saw, well, let me introduce the team because you guys get on me for this. So we have Jorge here.
Your number one dev, whose best friend is Kev.
Wow, he included you in this one.
Trying to clue me in for extra points.
I'm trying to inspire Kevin.
It
worked.
Yeah, he's blowing smoke, as they say. And of course, on the soundboard, the one and only Kevin Atterbury.
Good afternoon.
All right. Well, now that we got that situated, I did see a thread because I'm starting to I'm being forced into checking out threads.
Wait, I thought you were talking about a forum post
No,
versus
IG.
actual threads.
Yeah.
The social media platform.
That nobody
you just changed
uses.
my whole. I mean,
it's getting more popular.
There are people who have chosen it. Is it the most? They haven't released the numbers in a while.
Yeah,
which tells you that it's probably not ridiculous.
And I completely got off Twitter or X, but I have certain family members that are on it, and they keep sending me links to look at something on X, which makes me go to X. I just don't participate. Choose not to.
Right. I mean, it's very X-like. You know what I mean? They definitely heavily were inspired by it.
It's not. Threads is not as intuitive to me as a user. Like when I try to comment on something, I can't get to the place where I can comment. I can see the thread. It's like I feel like a caveman when I'm using it. 'Cause I click on it and I see the other comments, but then I can't really comment. And then I figure out how to comment, and then I do, and then I see I literally draw a line under a post so that you can see.
Right, they're trying to show that
quote unquote thread.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, getting to the point of small businesses, I saw someone on there post a thread, and she said, "I quit my job and started a business." And it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. All right. So you guys know I don't advise people to quit their jobs. There are some guys out there and gals that are like, follow your passion, quit your job, start a business. Nelson, you'd be the first one to say it's not that easy as it sounds.
I agree with you. It's not that easy. It's not that difficult. But you need to be prepared.
Right.
Yeah. Back in 2003, I was laid off from my job.
Wow.
And very quickly, that same day, I decided to start my own business. But I was prepared for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You had. I advise folks have a side gig, or think entrepreneurially, or start a business within the company you work for, so that you kind of have this safety net, if you will. I'm very similar to you. I got laid off. Most folks know that. And so I call myself a reluctant entrepreneur.
I think it's two different things to start a position where, okay, it's sink or swim. I got laid off. Now what do I do?
Now what do I? That's
versus
different.
That's like saying,
I had
okay,
a good job, but I just decided to quit.
I was on a boat and I just jumped off. You know what I mean? With no kind of game plan.
Yeah.
We're just gonna.
That's like skydiving when they say, why would you jump out of a perfectly
good airplane?
Good airplane.
So, I mean, those are different situations. And I think you have to start with, start from a position where you can kind of make that leap when you're ready. You kind of have to, prepare for it.
Yeah.
Take the look, analyze the risk. There's so many things that you can do in order to get there. But, having just that strong foundation first gives you a better chance of success.
I just think I just commended the woman. I don't even know who it was. It just happened to be there. I don't know if I follow her, but maybe some of the folks I do follow commented, and that's why I saw it. But I admired the candidness and the honesty in the post, because everybody like that posts something feels like I have to be like a hero. It has to be good news. I did it, and why can't you do it? It didn't have that tone. It was like, hey, I screwed up, and I think I can respect that authenticity of the nature of the post, and saying like, hey, I left something good and it didn't work out, and here I am.
But those are the important lessons to learn too.
Yeah, I'm always concerned when people have money.
Right.
Because spending the money is easy.
Right.
And they have the heart that says, I'm going to be successful. And they know that they're going to be successful, but, reality teaches them otherwise. Right. So always very concerned with money is not an issue.
Right. It's like, it's the same thing of like, how do you pass on that hunger? Somebody just, I feel like if I came out and said like, hey, I landed on third base, I inherited. I mean, when you're first generation, you don't inherit anything. First of all, let's put it out there. So we're all self-made, but we want, when we start building legacy, we want to make sure we're passing on that idea of like, be hungry, be smart, be strategic. And there are a lot of resources available that we're going to dive into, especially at the CTSBDC. Do you feel, Nelson, like there's an advent of resources now? I feel like there's so many cohorts and forums and organizations, and it's like, because I think when we get back down to it, is it always the right time to start a business? Is there ever a bad time to start a business?
I think that if you are prepared, if you have done the homework, if you have the experience, this might be the best time to start a business. But it's every case is different. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of clients who they didn't quit their jobs, and both of them are running successful, profitable businesses. And I love them. I just love them because they run these businesses that are doing so well, and it will be so easy to give up and say, I quit my job. And no, they decided to keep those sources of income alive. And I think that matters,
Right.
I always want my clients to have different sources of income. I don't want them to quit their jobs if they don't have to.
Right. I think that's sage advice, that idea of it being a source of income. Like, why would you cut that off? Right. I mean, I think, and I'll give a shout out to Chaka from Higher Heights. I think she came to a point where your business does kind of plateau at a certain point if you're putting in that part-time effort. And I think that's different. Like if you realize, like she realized, if I want to take my business to another level, I'm going to have to do it full time. And that's a realization you make. I think that's what you would call the logical progression or the evolution of your business as it scales. That, okay, you've got all these sources of income, and all of a sudden you realize, like, I've got to give more of my bandwidth to grow the business. That's different than like, hey, from day one, I'm just going to cut everything else out and do this.
I think there's something to be said about the folks who are in our network who are, let's say, serial entrepreneurs who may have 5, 6, 7 businesses. Right. I think you either have to make a choice. You either have to decide to do that full time once you get to a certain point, right? Again, you haven't you have a job, you decide to start a business. Yeah. It gets to a certain point and you realize, all right, either I have to dive into that or I have to hire somebody to be able to run that and carry that forward. One of those
Correct.
two things has to happen.
And at SBDC here in Connecticut, we have 15 advisors. And I think that the number one objective is run profitable businesses. That's the most important one. And we hope that the clients will get the message and they will act properly. And nothing happens. Nothing happens in 1 hour. You know, we have to be patient. We have to do the homework.
Yes.
And we have to do what we have to do.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you know, it's very easy to go back to what we are used to.
Right.
And that's the scary part.
Right. And I've lost count of how many businesses I've tried before PD. You know, like they're like that's the other thing is people feel like if I quit my job and start my business, and it doesn't work out, it's the end of the world. And it's like, no, like I was saying earlier, there was a quote that I saw by Larry, one of his daily Think Daily posts, Larry Janeski, shout out to him. It said, fail stands for first attempt in learning. And so it's not how many times you fall, because you're going to fall. It's making sure you get up after each time. I mean, I went back in the day in the early 2000s, like everybody was in the refinancing business, you know, the mortgage refinancing. I got into it. I became like a middleman. I wasn't even like certified, but everybody was like, there's money to be made, so you try it.
And you did.
And I did.
You made a lot of money.
Tasty golf tees.
Tasty golf tees. My dad was wearing a Tasty Golf Tees t-shirt this weekend.
That's amazing. Did you
And
get a picture?
there's still swag of that available. Add some flavor to your game. And that was another
amazing
business that I thought was going to take off. I patented, a friend of mine, shout out to John Pax, we patented a flavored golf tee. And my kids were little at the time, and they were like, Daddy, we're going to be rich. We're going to be rich, you know. And I started that while I was still working at Walker Digital. Going back to this idea that, you know, you keep your main source of income, and then you experiment. You try and see what happens, you know. And we patented this, and, you know, it was right before the, you know, Facebook and social. So I think that, you know, we had to promote it the old-fashioned way, like go on the radio.
We got to get that radio clip.
Yeah, we got a radio.
Have that be a commercial.
Absolutely. You know, then I started the Guerrilla Group with Kevin. Shout out to Kevin Kerwin.
The original Kevin at Peralta
Yeah,
Design.
so the original Kevin, my buddy and I, we both worked at Priceline, so we decided to start a business, and it was going to be like a web design, graphic design. You know, it was evolve or die. I still love that slogan. The Guerrilla Group, that didn't last very long because I was out there pounding the pavement, and when you have partnerships, but then you got to split the money. That's a whole nother, you know, then you need operating agreements, and, you know, somebody there are some guys that just want to grunt, they just want to do the work, they just want to grind. And then you have other folks that are like, hey, I'm going to be out there pounding the pavement doing the sales. And then it's like when you're doing sales, it's like hunting. You're hunting, but then when you bring the meat, you got to cut up the meat. And it's like, hey, who's eating? Who's going to get a bigger piece?
Yeah.
Is it equal? You know, so it's just, you got to keep learning with each business. And I guarantee you, if you speak to somebody that owns a business, it is typically not their first business. You know, but with each business, remember Guy was in here, Guy Fort, shout out to him. He had a restaurant. He's a fireman. He's an actor. Now he's selling water. It's like, but with each iteration, you learn something, and that's the key, you know. But when we come back after these words, we're going to learn all about the story behind the man, the myth, the legend, Nelson Merchan.
Wonderful.
This episode here is brought to you by the Connecticut Small Business Boost Fund. It gives small business owners access to flexible funding for capital expenditures and working capital, and connects them with support services. Small businesses and nonprofits can borrow between $5,000 and $500,000 depending on eligibility and need. And you can spend how you spend the money. It could be equipment, payroll, utilities, supplies, marketing, advertising, all that good stuff. And they're very low interest over a 60 to 72 month term. You can get more information and you can apply at ctsmallbusinessboostfund.org. I want you to take us back to those dirt roads of Bogota.
Okay.
You know, the countryside.
Yeah.
Or the big city. Take us back. Tell us your story.
So I was born in Bogota. I have 3 siblings, and I always, when I was in high school, I was thinking about what to study. So I have a long list of potential careers that I could start, and business was the one that I selected. There was no doubt about it. So back then, it was a 5-year program. I went to La Universidad de los Andes, downtown Bogota, and it was a wonderful experience. Small private university, very well known, and it was wonderful. And before that, when I was probably in middle school, I started a business, landscaping business. Our yards are very small, but I wanted to make some money. Didn't make too much money, but it was just the beginning of an entrepreneur.
What would you charge for to cut grass?
I cannot remember, but I imagine it was
the equivalent.
It was nothing. It was nothing. It
like,
was probably $2. Yeah, because the yards are very small, and
nobody
does it.
What was your equipment like?
I probably had a little, a little
machete,
something very simple, to do the yard. And I always had the support of my parents. We live in a very nice neighborhood, and I got a few clients, and it was a dirty job.
Yeah,
but I wanted to make money, so that was my first business.
And how old were you? You said you teenager?
I was probably 11.
Okay.
Probably, yeah. Then I got into designing kites. It was nice to have my own kites. And the same, I was probably 12, and my mom allowed me to use the main window in the living room as a showcase. And I think that the best customer that I had was my mom.
Good old mom.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. And
but kites, you're talking about like flying.
Yeah, the flying kites. Yeah, with the string.
What material did you use to make them? It was
basic stuff, bamboo and some material that I could buy in the local store. And my mom was made that business profitable. But I quickly gave up that. But I was always thinking, I want to have a business and it has to be unique. I don't want to have a big office. I don't want to have a secretary. I don't want to have big furniture. So that was always in my mind.
Well, who was your inspiration when you were young?
My parents were into, without knowing, they were into real estate. So they own several properties. And it was just the sacrifice, We could live in a beautiful house or we could buy another house. And the decision was to buy another house and another house. Yeah, to invest. Yeah. So that was nice, even though, that's a type of business. But I think my inspiration was my mom because she was always thinking about, buying more with less. So that was important for me. It's being efficient and generating more income, but being quite efficient running the business.
And what about your siblings? Were they also into business, or was this something that you
No, they were not into business at all. Yeah. So, but I graduated, and I remember that in my career, one of my teachers said, I'm starting a business and I want you to be a partner. And I said, really? I was not ready. Even though I was a business student, I was not ready.
What do you mean
I felt
by that?
honored.
Like you just...
No, I was just too academic.
Yeah.
It was just, I was in my bubble, and no, I was not ready for that.
And so you turned it down?
Yeah, finally, that's what happened. I said, no. I mean, we didn't continue the conversation, but it was such an honor to receive that
what do you
invitation.
Think she saw something in you that had potential?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was one of the first ones to write my thesis for graduation. So I'm in business, I was not average. I didn't want to be average at all. And I invite my client not to be average. If we want to be successful, we have to be different.
Absolutely. If you want extraordinary results, you got to take extraordinary measures.
Yeah. So I graduated quickly because I worked on my thesis. I had another partner, and that didn't work out. So I said, no, I'm doing it on my own. No. I need to graduate.
And what was it like growing up in Bogota? I imagine a lot of street vendors and just I feel like with Latinos there's like a lot of DNA just of entrepreneurship. We're born with it, where we're either selling food or like you said, making crafts or buying real estate, or just that, you grew up that like Colombia, just kind of
the entrepreneurship. It's popular everywhere. And people are trying to make an extra buck. and when I was there, that was a long time ago. But I think that nothing has changed. People want to make money now with the online options, so more people can make money different ways. But there is always a need for a local hamburger and good food.
Yeah.
So,
and what about like the indigenous? I think there's also like you can buy like indigenous, like the blankets and things like that, like the things that are more traditional to Colombia.
So there are some towns that are more popular with those type of products. So there is a market for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're in Colombia. At what point do you even think of coming to the United States? Like what was that like?
So my parents decided that when I was born, and where my siblings were born, they decided that we were going to get educated in the U.S. So it was time for me to identify a university that where I will just take my MBA. I ended up going to Georgia State University. So I was there for 2 years, and it was a great experience. I was looking for a small university and ended up in downtown Atlanta, but it was great. It was wonderful.
I love Atlanta.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And out of all the places, how did you?
The admissions staff in that university is very clever. They were looking for the best, so
they found you. You didn't find them.
Yeah. But exactly. I was attending the University of Athens in Athens, Georgia, and I met this Colombian guy. Wonderful, wonderful family. And he said, how is that going? Your admissions to the university? And I said, I got admitted to a university locally. Within an hour of here, and he said, "Are you going to go?" I said, "No, there is no need." He said, "No, there is a need, and I'll take you." So I said, "Oh my God, there are wonderful people here."
Yeah.
So
none of us make it alone. So it's like there are people that come into your life to
he was
guide you.
Amazing. I met his dad. I met his sister. She was working on a PhD, Colombians. And so he took me to the university. I met with one of the officials, and I said, "No, I don't want to study here." Yeah. I felt that was not my university. So I have to see my friend again one of these days and say, thank you. You were wonderful, and you helped me make better decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have culture shock or like learning English or any challenges that you faced there?
So when I got to Atlanta, I was waiting in the gate and there was nobody. It was at night and there was nobody there. I said, I'm in the wrong gate. No, I was in the right gate. I was the only person in the airplane. It was a small airplane, but I was the only passenger. So I felt good.
Private jet.
VIP.
Yeah. So I got there. The next morning I went to a diner, and they said something, and I didn't know if they were talking to me but that was the first contact with the community. The lady was saying hello to me in a very certain way, but I was just learning. So I missed that part, but it was good. It was the beginning of getting familiar with the US. I had traveled before a few times for vacation. So I felt at home. It was different, but I felt well.
Yeah.
I felt welcome, and I wanted to study. And in the meantime, I made a few friends.
Excellent. Now, how do you make your way from Atlanta up to New England?
So I finished my MBA, and I had some short-term assignment in Washington D.C. But my wife had relatives in Danbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
And they said, we're waiting for you.
Yeah, big community there, big Colombian community.
Back then, it was a little bit big. Back then.
You said your wife, but at this point, so you met your wife in college?
So I met her in Colombia, in Bogota. And before I graduated, I went back to Colombia and I married her.
Okay.
So it was a little bit crazy. Yeah.
And then you have to convince her, all right, we're going to start this whole other life. You're going to just join me and we're going to go to America.
Yeah, right. Did she want you to stay in Colombia?
I mean, that was the expectation that I was going.
That was going to be my next question. Was if that when that conversation came up.
Yeah, no. I mean, when you love somebody, you love somebody, and so whatever the couple decides, it's okay. And even if it's crazy enough, like getting married and you are not making any money, and you are finishing your MBA, so
she had to buy into the vision.
Yeah.
you had to
And the same
convince
with
her.
my parents. My parents were amazing, because they didn't say anything. They just said, we are supporting you, and better things will continue to come your way, and they did. They did, yeah.
All right. Well, you sold them on this promise of the future, the vision of what was going to happen. And so your wife's family was already kind of settled in Danbury.
Several relatives,
Yeah.
and they said another opportunity of life. It's like when you are welcome and nothing is questioned. It's just we're waiting for you.
Did they tell you
The
how
soup
cold
is
it
getting
was
cold.
there?
No, they didn't. But
The snow.
I was ready for that. That was not an issue. That was not an issue at all. I was ready for it.
All right. So now you're settling in Danbury.
Yeah, we did, and my wife didn't pay too much attention to English when she was in school, but she realized that it was time to learn the language, and she did it quickly. Yeah. So that was good.
Excellent. And now, being in Danbury, what's next? Because I know you don't just find the SBDC. You probably gained some additional business experience on your own, or did you work in any corporations?
So I was working for a company in Stanford.
Okay.
But I was always thinking about the Hispanic market. And I said, that's what I want. I'm bilingual, and that's where my heart is. So somehow I connected with a headhunter. And the headhunter said, there is a company in Wilton that it's a good match. So I interviewed with the CEO and some other people in the company, and they said, we want you, we need you, join our team. So that was exciting because I was working with the Hispanic market, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think you represent well. Like I've always, we see each other at so many, community events, and you're just always like this, like distinguished gentleman. You just make us proud, and I know that the demographics in Connecticut are increasingly feel like they come in waves, like Jorge, Puerto Rican, Peruvian, Dominican, but now I feel like there's a lot more South American migrants or people coming here, and they all have this American dream of working hard, taking care of their family, building a business, and I think you're positioned to really help a lot of people. Kind of take us through that journey of how you ended up at the CTSBDC.
So I worked for that company for some time, and then there were changes, and then another company in Greenwich hired me. I moved to that company, and it was a wonderful experience. At some point, we needed to do work online because most of my work required building a database for Hispanics in the U.S. And I said, I think that we need to try Google. Google is a new company. We're talking about 2001.
Man,
Google...
you should have bought stock back then.
Oh yeah. So I told the company, I want to. The first company, I said, we need to do Google ads. And so they started the conversation with the lawyers of Google. They were reviewing the contract because back then it was possible, brand new company. And they couldn't agree on the terms. So we didn't do advertising with Google because of that. But when I moved to the other company in Greenwich, my boss said, yeah, if you feel that Google is the way to go ahead. So that's how I learned to do Google ads. So we started spending money. I learned how to do it on my own, and we achieved our objectives. And that was great because the day I was laid off, so it was an interesting day because my boss from Ohio, he came to Greenwich just to say, Nelson, I'm sorry, you have to go.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. So he called me and said, Nelson, come downstairs. So I said, I'm next, that day.
I remember that.
Did you have the feeling that was going to be
that morning, 130 people were laid off.
Oh
wow.
My God.
Yeah. So a lot of meetings, not only in Greenwich, but in other parts of the country,
Yeah, I remember the first wave, some of the earlier waves of layoffs. it's like devastation. You know, when you lay off that many people,
Mhm.
like you can walk through an office that was formerly full of people, and then it's almost like a nuclear bomb went off. Like you just see the cubes, and you just see staplers, and you know, like it's almost like I remember seeing like those big moving boxes, and they were full of staplers, or you just see like, and then you just think of like each stapler represented a person's job, and like laptop cords, chairs pushed aside. You know, you're just walking through where it's almost like
It's like Pompeii. Like everything is just kind of left there in that
exactly.
moment.
Like you just start recreating the lives that are now displaced, and it's a very sobering, you know, realization, you know, that we're all, especially in Connecticut, we're all at will, you know, like you can be let go, and that there's a whole history to being laid off. That like this happened like I think it was during the Reagan era, where prior to this, and I think it had to do with, and you guys that are listening can Google it, but it had to do with like these airport strikes that were going on, and it all of a sudden became acceptable where a business could look at employees as like numbers, and it just became more common. And now it's like, as soon as they need to have like a cost saving measure, it's like just lay off people. But prior to that, it was like people would stay at companies until the end.
Yeah.
You know, there was a loyalty from both sides, from the company to the employee, and to the employee to the company. And then now it's very common. I mean, we hear it all the time. Tesla, Apple, you know, you just see companies like when they need to save money, like the first thing they think of is like, well, let's chop off employees. And especially if you're a high earner, if you're in that upper echelon, they realize like, man, if we just lay off all these people, you know, and you realize that when you have that conversation, I know for me it was like, okay, we love you, but you know, your services are no longer needed. And you realize like, wow, you know, like, you know, I don't have any, I'm powerless.
Yeah.
That was the feeling that I felt like of, I'm powerless to this. And then you have this realization of like, how am I going to pay my bills? You know, how am I going to explain this to my family? Because you identify with your job. So I empathize with that moment of hearing that.
And we forget that we need to be prepared for the future, the present and the future.
Right.
You know? And professional development is one way to prepare. But we just take every day like a regular day, and we stop growing.
Right.
And that's concerning. Whether you're an employee or a business owner, you know, we need to keep growing.
Keep growing.
And I love when
the
I see you.
The learning process is never ending.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I love when I see you in a small anniversary celebrations. We were in one recently, like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to see you because you are a busy person, but you take time to be with the chamber, with the small businesses, and say, look, I'm here, I'm present, and I care about you and your future. So thank you for being there, because you are a role model, and we need more of you. Otherwise, you know, it's...
I look at our, you know, it's a partnership to me, you know, it keeps me humble.
Yeah.
Because when I see that brand new business owner, it reminds me of where we started. And I never want to forget that. You know, I never want to forget that. And I want to be, and I think we should all be who we wish was there for us. And so maybe it took us 15 years to get to where we are, but with the resources that are out there, maybe the next business owner can reach success in 5 years. Or less, or 10, you know, but the idea is that we continue to help each other, because a strong economy helps all of us.
Yeah.
You know, and what you realize is like the backbone of the economy are these small businesses. They're the ones that hire each other. They need, they can pay the rent. They can go to the restaurant. They can buy the car. They can pay the mortgage. It fuels the small business in the U.S. is definitely, to me, the backbone of any strong economy. So it's in our best interest, right, to continue to help them.
And it's incredible when we look at the numbers at SBDC, and we helped 2,800 clients last year.
Wow.
So we work with them. I see every year over 150 clients. Some of them is quick, 1 hour, 2 hours of advising, but some of them require more than that.
Yeah.
And our number one priority is access to capital. So you are buying the building where your business is located, or you're buying a farm, or you want to buy another bakery. We want to work with you.
Right.
We want the bank to give you the money because you are helping the economy. You know what you're doing. You're profitable, so we want to help you. So it's nice when a woman says, "I want to buy the farm. I need $1.2 million," and the bank says, "We love you." Yeah, yeah. Work with SBDC. Work with SBDC. Work with Nelson. And
do they really say that?
Work with Nelson and any other of the 15
Thank God
advisors.
you're there. But tell me, I don't want to skip over this part. You got laid off. How do you end up here?
So I went back home and I told my wife, I'm not updating my resume. I'm not updating a cover letter. I'm going to start my own business.
Yeah.
So I had a refurbished IBM computer, very well located in my living room. So I didn't have room for the study room. My expenses were low.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was very understanding. My 2 kids didn't know what was going on.
Right.
But that was learning. They were learning, and I think that was something valuable when I would share with my children what was going on. Because, it's like they are not listening, but they are listening.
They are. They're paying attention.
They're paying attention, yeah. So I did that. And I had a Yahoo account, and next day I was in conversations with a company in England. And I say, look, I know that you are looking for online work, and I can deliver results for you. So I didn't get them as a client, but that was the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a bit naive, but I had the knowledge. Mm-hmm. I knew how to do Google Ads.
You knew your worth.
Yeah.
You knew your value.
Yeah. And that's important.
It is.
Yeah, knowing your value. Why charge $1 when you can charge $3 or $5 or $10?
Right.
So I don't want my clients to try to sell hot dogs for $1.50 like Costco does. No, I want you to charge $3.50 or $5, whatever you can charge, because that means that you are providing more value, and your family is going to sleep better, and it's going to have a better life. So it's all about value, and the value.
Yeah. So how did you continue to grow this business?
So somehow I found my first client, and I always somehow it happened. And
now, do you have all the paperwork at this point?
That's just like
that's part of the experience. I'm curious about. Like, do you already put together like a service contract? Like, did you have the paperwork side done, or was it just an understanding and a handshake? Like, where do you make that transition?
So at some point, I had to create my own LLC. So I had 2 options. One is to do it on my own, or the other one was to hire a good lawyer. And I decided to hire a good lawyer. So I had to pay some extra, but it was so nice to know that I had a business lawyer. So he was part of my team. And I didn't mind to pay for his fees because he knew what he was doing. So that was the starting point. And then somehow I found an accountant and a tax professional.
Started building your team.
Yeah, I was building my team. Yeah. And my accountant, I asked the guy, which bank should I bank with? And he said, any bank is, they are all the same. Really? So I opened an account with a bank, and they didn't care who I was.
We won't name that bank.
We will not do that. Yeah. No. So they didn't care who I was, and I said, no, my accountant is not giving me good advice.
Right.
I need Nelson. I need better advice. So I met a woman at a Danbury Chamber of Commerce event. I met a banker. She was persistent. I talked to my friend. I said, you have the account with them. What do you think? I said, it's a good bank. So I switched banks, and that was the best decision. That was the best decision. When I was at her office, so now I knew the banker, right, the branch manager. She said, Nelson, what about having a line of credit? I said, I have superpowers. I don't need no line of credit.
I know.
I don't need it.
I identify with that so
Yeah.
much because I think, I don't know if it's being like naive or ignorant, but for some reason, small business owners think it's like a badge of honor to say, I don't have any loans. I don't have any, but they don't understand like the biggest businesses operate when they know how to manage debt, and they know that like it's okay to get access to capital so that you can grow your business. But there's this feeling that like if you're paying for it all cash, that it's some reason you should be proud of that, but it actually at some point begins to limit your growth, right?
So she said, Nelson, you don't want it, but I highly recommend that you have it. I said, okay, where do I sign? So that was good. You know, she was my advisor.
You were humble enough to say, this woman clearly can help me and must know more about this than I do.
Yeah, and I had to pay a yearly additional fee.
Right.
But that was not an issue because I trusted her.
Right.
And eventually, you know, I had to use that line of credit.
Right.
Because one of my clients decided not to pay in 30 days, but 90 days.
There you go.
90 days, you know. And I said, you know, I can handle that. But no, I couldn't handle that. 90 days waiting for the check.
That's such a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
I think for my first line of credit, it was through the MBDA, you know, through the council and it was Ken Wheeler, in fact, from Wheels Up.
Okay.
And he said, you know, you can get a line of credit for like, you can have access to, I think it was, I don't know, $120,000 or something like that. He was like, you don't have to use it, but it's there. And he goes, but you have to pay $250 fee.
Every year.
I said, for peace of mind, that's a pretty good deal. I think I'll sign up for that. You know, and as your business grows, you can qualify for more. But it's just there so that when you know, what if you get that big account and one of the things you learn in business is the bigger the account, sometimes the longer they take to pay you.
Yeah.
So you go after this big fish and then they don't pay you for 90 days. Guess what? You still have to make payroll, you have to pay your bills, and then once you access that now, you can just put it back. When you do get paid, you can just put it right back. And then I think as long as you put it back within a certain amount of time, there's no interest.
Yeah.
But that's all financial literacy that you can learn that I think a lot of small business owners don't know about.
The other learning from that experience was that that, you know, even if there is a rule, there is always a way to, you know, to go around the rule.
Right.
But you assume that you cannot do that, and that's not good for businesses. So there is a lady from that corporation who said, Nelson, how are you doing with that policy? I said, you know, I really don't like it. I said, well, write a letter explaining that letter why. I mean, the email, explaining that in that email why it's not working for you. So it's amazing, you know, when we come across, you know, these beautiful people who want the best for you.
Yeah.
So I did some thinking and put it together, a beautiful email, and I explained, you know, this is why it's not working for me. They changed the policies from 90 days to 30 days. So again, you know, we need to be different. We cannot be average.
Right.
Being average means I accept your rule and
exactly,
and I will live with it for the next 20 years. And so that was so nice. That was very nice.
And when did the opportunity come to join the SBDC?
So I enjoyed my company. It was wonderful. I spent more than $500,000 in Google Ads, and it worked quite well. Yeah. At the beginning, we worked here in the U.S., but then I remember one client who said, you know, it's a long story, but he said, you know, I have work in Australia, France, Spain, you know, can you do it? I said, of course. Of course we can do it. And so I was doing Google Ads in those countries, and everything was results-oriented. So I couldn't spend money for the sake of it. I had to meet
you had to show results. Yeah,
I had to show results, but it was so nice. But something I knew that having very few clients was not a good idea. I knew that, and there was somebody who said, Nelson, a single client cannot be more than whatever number, 15% of your business, and I knew that. But I was not actively working towards having more clients. So my life depended on one client, which was the Nielsen company. So they were very significant in my business. Mm-hmm. And at some point, they decided to outsource the function that I was doing to another company in Connecticut. And technically, they couldn't provide the solution that I needed so that I could track results. The pixel. If they are not willing to add the pixel for technical reasons, I cannot continue working with you, because the pixel is my life. For Google Ads, it's the pixel.
That's how you track.
Yeah. So I couldn't track the results. So basically, that was the end of my company. And
so there's a lesson there in the fact that your company relied on this one big client. So diversification is a way to be more sustainable.
You have to have more clients. Yeah,
right.
You cannot depend on one or two clients. If one client can go and your company is okay, you are in good. You are doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was a big lesson, but it was a wonderful lesson, because that's how I ended up working for SBDC. I became an advisor. I used to be an advisor with SCORE because I wanted to give back to the community. SCORE is a non-profit, and advisors, they do the job for free. But I thought that was a wonderful way to give back to the community. So they called me and said, we want a Latino to advise businesses, and we would love for you to be an advisor. And I said, sure. I'll give a few hours of my time every week, and I'll be an advisor. So I got to be an advisor before I had the experience, the interview with SBDC. And it has been wonderful. That happened 10 years ago. And I have been an advisor with SBDC for 10 years.
Awesome. And it's affiliated with SBA.
So the SBDC is part of UConn. We are actually employees of the School of Business at UConn, the University of Connecticut. And we get there is a collaborative agreement with the SBA, the state of Connecticut, and the University of Connecticut.
Excellent.
So that's how the service is provided at no cost to businesses in Connecticut.
Yeah,
it's free.
Awesome. I mean, they got a good one in you. Like I said, you represent well, and I'm sure that you're waving the flag in a way. I see you at all the events. Tell us some of the services that you provide through the SBDC, and maybe share a success story.
So we have a wonderful team of 15 advisors that we have different specialties. We all service the whole state of Connecticut, and COVID was a big experience for us, and we were the #1 advising organization in Connecticut. We worked very long hours, but we help companies. They needed our help. So we were happy to be able to provide that assistance,
During the pandemic.
During the pandemic, yeah. So there was no conversations about, are we ready? No, we were ready. Yeah, we had our laptop, we have our cell phones. So we were ready to work with our clients and provide service. So that was crazy. And we needed to learn about the PPP and all of these programs and grants. And so it was not easy, but, we were there, delivering for the state of Connecticut, delivering for UConn, delivering for SBA. It was nice. Yeah, it was nice being able to be a resource. So we have now 15 advisors. We cover the whole state. We want new companies to increase the likelihood of being profitable, and we want existing companies to continue growing. So if they grow, it's good for the economy, it's good for their families, for their communities. They can hire more people, and Connecticut will do better. And servicing 2,800 clients is a big number.
It is.
And helping them access, 50 or 60 million in capital, in funds, it matters. It matters to the economy.
Yeah, and give us a success story, or share at least the process, because when you say we've helped 2,800 businesses, or you see 150 to 200 clients per year. Tell us, what does that exactly mean?
So there is a woman who goes to bank #1 asking for a loan because she wants to start a business. The bank says no. She goes to bank #2 because she's a woman with superpowers. She goes to bank #2 and the bank says no. She goes to bank #3 and she gets the same reply. And she says, what's going on here? So 2 of the bankers said, you should talk to SBDC. Talk to Nelson. And so she did, again, because she knows that the business is going to happen. So she talks to me. I review the business plan. She became an SBDC client. We review the business plan. We review the financial projections. Another lender got involved, and the lender, CIC Lending, Luis, he loved it. He said, Nelson, I agree with you. This is an amazing business. And so she was able to open her business during the pandemic. And now I hope you have visited the business. Is Aquila's Nest Vineyards in Newtown.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wonderful place.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, they have great events.
Yeah,
I mean, they do a lot of interactive things. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that's an example of how, when you have done your homework, when you are prepared to start a business, you can make it happen, and it can be successful, and it can be profitable. And that's what we want. But the decision to start the business, that didn't happen the day before. It was the couple. They visited many vineyards, not only in the U.S., but worldwide. And, when they were growing up, they got to love the grapes. They got to love what the grape can do for you, which is delicious wine. So they were really connected with the product. And so, and then they decided to, they had the best equipment. It was Italian equipment. Yeah.
But this is where your business degree comes into play, and your knowledge as a businessman comes into play, and this is also a lesson for small business owners, is that they have to come to you with a real business plan and profit loss statement. Maybe share what are some of the documentation that a small business should have before they come to seek your guidance.
I think the most important part is the decision to start a business. I think that's the most important part. We can work with the client on the business plan. I can do the financial projections for the business owner.
And that's all free?
That's all free.
Wow.
They don't pay anything. At the end of the day, we want them to say, SBDC help us to access capital, or help us, with strategy, or help us, with connections, whatever it was, because we need to show results. So we are very much like a private corporation. We mean business, and we need to show metrics. Otherwise, we are not getting funded. So we're very aggressive, and we, sometimes, we go the extra mile for our clients.
Excellent. I see you have some literature. Can you share some of the information that you brought with you? Share some of the programs, and maybe share where if there's a listener out there that thinks they could use help, how do they reach you?
Okay, well, we have our website. We invite our clients to sign up at ctsbdc.uconn.edu. So that's the website's a bit long, but again, ctsbdc.uconn.edu. We are part of UConn, of the University of Connecticut. They go to the website, they register. My coworker calls them to learn more about their needs, and before they are assigned a business advisor. And again, the service is free and confidential. We work with the client to write the business plan. We work with the client to do the financial projections. We can provide market research at no cost. It's free.
Wow.
And we provide guidance because we want the business to be successful. It has to be profitable. We want that to happen. And we hope that the client will be open-minded and be ready to dream. Like you and your vision. You talk about dreamers, you talk about entrepreneurs and corporations. That's who you help. So we want them to dream with us. We don't think that business is back to business before COVID. No, we have to be creative. We have to be providing better value to our clients to survive and to thrive.
Excellent. I mean, listen, guys, if you don't take advantage of this, you can lead a horse to water, but you have the resources available to you for free. You have good people like Nelson. Mark Hales is another one. Valeria is another one. These are good people out here in the community looking to help your business. So please take advantage. As we like to say here, this is your opportunity to launch your brand.
It is. Yeah, our team is wonderful. We have great leadership. And we have the tools that nobody else does. So it's important to take advantage of them. One of the tools is financial benchmarking. So we can compare your financials in a confidential way with similar companies in your industry. So how is your pizzeria doing in comparison to similar pizzerias? Because, if you are spending too much on payroll, that's why you don't see profits. So, so this report shows the most important metrics for a business. And that's wonderful information. And we hope, and we see how our clients can use that information to change the business model and become more profitable.
Excellent. Can you give the address one more time?
Yeah, the address is ctsbdc.uconn.edu. So if you search for business advice in University of Connecticut, you are very likely to find our website. Sign up today and be ready to, magic doesn't happen in 1 hour. So we need to invest time and effort.
All right. Well, Nelson, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And thank you for all you do for our community.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands.